So hey everybody, it's about halfway through the year. It is May 30th, so pretty much about halfway through the year. I don't think there's any more content that I'll be able to add to this, so I decided to go ahead and do it. Okay, we have the Intermediate Japanese book and Tobira. Between the two textbooks, I definitely would have to say I enjoyed, at least, or I much prefer Tobira over Intermediate, which was kind of the beginning. Once I started getting into both, it kind of started out that way, and it pretty much is still the same. When I first started doing these books, I did one chapter from Intermediate, and then I bookmarked it, and then I did one chapter from Tobira and bookmarked it, and then I went back and forth and back and forth. I actually stopped on chapter 9. So what I was pretty much doing was I was breaking down. I don't have my notebook with me, but I'm not going to show you it because you see it in some of the other study videos I have, where I would actually copy everything down. The dialogue, the little Yomimono readings that they have, everything I would write out, and I would translate it pretty much. I would write down the readings for it above it, the furigana and everything, so that I could read it pretty much. I wrote everything out. But after chapter 9, I just started writing the grammar points out. The one thing I didn't like about this, I don't know if there is a workbook with it. There might be. I think there is a little workbook with it, kind of like Genki, if I remember. You really do need more examples than what they provide in this book. But it's the same with Tobira. They really don't provide a lot of examples. They actually probably provide more. Hold on. So I guess in a way that's a bonus for Intermediate Japanese. At the end of each section, they give you a bunpo renshu. So it has actual questions. So they do give you, like, they teach you less points, but they do have a couple questions, sample questions at the end of each chapter. There is no answer key, if I remember right. Just a whole bunch of sakuin. Yeah. So there is no answer key to the questions that are in this book. So that is a little bit of a downside. I really like to check my work, but you can't do it with this one. So you could still do the questions and hope that they're right. So actually, yeah, let's go ahead and start with this one. Intermediate Japanese. Its layout is really nice. I think, they're really similar in the layouts, actually. Most of them are. Even Genki, pretty much have, I don't think do they give you new vocabulary? I think that part is the only thing that's different. Oh yeah, they do. They do give you new vocabulary. Not really new vocabulary, but just the vocabulary is the words that they use in the dialogues and in the readings and everything like that. So it's not just random words spit out at you like in Genki. Genki, they'll give you some of the words that are in the dialogues and the readings, but there's a lot of other words that aren't in the dialogues. So that's kind of weird. So let's show you this one first. So you have the open, show you the ISBN number. This is probably an older version, so I would check to see if it's been updated since before purchasing it. Mokuji. Okay, so chapter 1, Daika Shokai, so it's just an introduction. So they give you culture notes. Some of them are kind of interesting, I suppose. And they give you kanji to practice. So they give you a sheet of kanji to practice, which I didn't do because, like, a lot of these, look at the beginning kanji. This is an intermediate book, by the way, so I think it's really more of a high beginner book. But, so look at the kanji. So hopefully you know these kanji before you get here, but that is what they show you. And then they give you the readings for the kanji on the back, which is nice because sometimes it can be hard to look up readings. So just like in every book, they have a dialogue. So he gives you some dialogue. So I tend to highlight some of the grammar that's used in this chapter. They're pretty simple. They have pretty good dialogues. A lot of very hard to read words sometimes. Well, I mean, I can read these. They give you a lot more advanced kanji. They don't give you the readings for them in the actual dialogues and the actual readings. See, there's no furigana. So all of that is over in the tango. The tango is only words pretty much that were used in the previous part. So then they actually give you the readings and the definitions. So I like the layout of that. It's really nice. And they give you a pretty good healthy amount of new words per chapter. I mean, I can only imagine trying to memorize all of these for, I don't know how long people would spend on one chapter. I usually spend about 2 weeks per chapter, sometimes more, sometimes less. And there's another kanji list. These ones here look pretty tough. I'm kind of surprised. The ones on top don't look as bad. Then we have the bunpo noto. So they give you a little bit of information each point. So they don't always explain it. I suppose they don't always explain. They usually just give you the point, the rough translation, and then some example sentences. So sometimes they'll put them in these gray boxes if there is a explanation or any extra information on that point. But usually they're pretty short and to the point, and hopefully you understand it because you have no teacher, or at least I have no teacher to explain to me any further, because you can see how much information they put on each point. It's not that much. So this actually reminds me a little bit more of Genki in the layout, and the words are a lot bigger. And then we have Bunpo Renshu. So this first one has 12 points. So that is pretty much the chapter. This is all the exercises that they have, and then you have more Unyo Renshu. So then they give you stuff to, like actual writing stuff to do, not just, fill in the blank or correct the sentence or fix the sentences. This is more like they give you a topic and you write about it, or role playing. And then they give you another little writing exercise, listening exercise, just like in Genki. And then they give you like sokudoku. They give you like a little reading at the end and some questions. And they always put little either they put kotowaza or they put haiku at the bottom. And then you're on to chapter 2. The layout pretty much is the same. As you can see, the words. Sometimes they add other little notes in here, which is nice. Conjugations. There's a lot of conjugations. So this one has 11 points. And the font on here, like I said, is rather big. It does remind me a lot more of Genki. Maybe a little bit smaller than Genki. And that pretty much is the whole book. The layouts are pretty nice. They're easy to follow and easy to read. So I bet this one is really good right off Genki. This would probably be the next one I would have gone to. Or the next one I would go to. I have gone over all of the grammar, but I haven't gone over all of the vocabulary and such. So it looks like roughly maybe 12 points per chapter. But the whole layout of the book stays consistent. I don't know, some of the kanji they teach are pretty hard and are pretty advanced kanji. I'm just really surprised by some of it. This is an intermediate book, which I consider probably a little bit more of a high beginner book. So I read that book. So then we have the Tobira. Tobira is pretty popular book, I think. There's a lot of pretty good reviews on it. But let's kind of go through a little bit of it. Let me see if I can was this for? I'm going to put that there for a moment. Kind of get the spot. And I have the ISBN number. Tobira pretty much means gateway. Book. I don't know really where you would go from here. Textbook wise, especially for self-studies, aside from like going to actual going to Japan to actually study abroad would probably be the next stage. I'm not really certain. The introduction, the Mokuji, and it gives you the information on going online right here for the sites. So there is an online section where you can download the audio for it. I think inside each book somewhere there is a password, I think. I can't remember if I typed a password in when I first got on there. I don't remember. But that is the web address right there. So the first chapter, so you have Nihon no Chiri. So they just kind of throw you in and just give you these questions. And actually it really confused me at first, but they just kind of throw you in. They give you some of the vocabulary over here. So here is sort of a side-by-side comparison of the readings. This one is intermediate. I think that one's probably a good one. That one's chapter 2. Let me look at chapter 3's real quick. Yeah, so that's pretty much a good idea of what the readings look like in intermediate. This is another one. And then this one is from the first chapter in Tobira. So the font is a lot smaller in Tobira, and they give you a lot more information usually. So there's more over here. And then they give you the readings at the bottom. If you don't know how to pronounce a word, you got the readings at the bottom. And then the definitions and such after it. So it's not all in one section like an intermediate. And then you have the dialogue, which is a lot smaller font. And culture note, dialogue, more dialogue, and the sort of the definition for your new words. A little chart, and then they give you some reading. They do give you some reading practice here. Some more exercises you can listen to. So kind of like listening comprehension. And some role playing. And then the Bunpo Noto. So you can already see that there's a lot more information that they give you compared to the intermediate book. And roughly about 12 points in the other book. Usually in this one, I don't think I saw a 20 point, but I think 18 was the most I saw. So this one's 16. They give you a good amount of examples, and these are examples from the actual readings. So they give you, so this is from the dialogue, So they give you where the examples are from. So all of these look like dialogue readings, and then they give you some kanji to practice. And all of these kanji are from also the dialogues and the readings, so it all kind of ties together a lot better than in the intermediate. And then we have a little reading for you, along with some vocabulary, and that's the end of the chapter. Alright, so let's see if I can find where I left off before my battery dies. So we have the points, and then the little reading at the end. I think that's where I left off. And then the second chapter. And then each of the beginning part is kind of like They're usually, so the beginning part is different from one another, so they do give you a little bit of variety in the beginning of each chapter, which is good, but each lesson is pretty consistent. And you can see the writing, sorry for the lighting, the writing is a lot smaller than it is in the last book. And see, this reading is pretty long. It starts here, ends there, and then they have some styles, which is just conjugations. And then the tango, dialogue. And we have a lot of practice right here. And then a couple questions. So then here's the next section for the grammar. Let's see. This one has 16 also. Some more kanji, and then just the ending information. Some of this stuff's really interesting. So this one talks about sentence final particles. That's all in there. So number 3. Let's see how many points are in this one. Pass all of this. That one's also 16. Also 16, but you can see that in each section, the grammar section, they're going to give you the example from the readings, they're going to give you the explanation, the English rough translation, all of the shapes or forms of it, and then more examples. So they do give you a lot more information per grammar point than the other book does. Here's some katakana words. Each chapter has kind of a topic of sorts. So this one is the sports one. That's all of this. So this one has 18 points. You can see that one. So pretty much, I just really like all of the extra information they give you too. In this book, I believe there is a little bit of culture notes in the intermediate book, but it's definitely not as informative or definitely not as detailed as this book. Do some more reading practice. So I guess a good thing to say about this one is that they do give you a lot of reading practice in this one. 18 points on that one. So I mean, that's pretty much the setup for this book. It pretty much is the same all the way through. I have a song on this one. But, I mean, if you're looking for an intermediate book, I wouldn't be a bad thing to start out with the intermediate book, maybe. I think that one's probably a good, like, starting point right after Genki or any other, there's GTO, or any other sort of beginner grammar book. So I know there's more than just Genki out there. But that is pretty much the book. I kind of like all the stories also that they give you. They definitely give you longer stories. Oh, look, I actually probably haven't read this part yet. This is always a grammar point that I kind of struggled with, especially it was at the very end of the first Genki book, and it's like a interpretation. It's kind of like a implied meaning, that you're adding to your sentence, and sometimes it's hard for me to catch on to that kind of stuff, so there's that. I should probably read it. Also got the grammar power book. Is just kind of, it's just exercises that go along with the Tobira textbook. So they pretty much, it's the same type of structure. I'm sorry I don't have a workbook for the other one. I don't really know how well the exercise book is, but I always know that when you get a textbook, it's always nice to have an exercise book to go along with it. So I haven't gotten very far yet in the exercise book. It comes with the answer key, which is always in the back. But the exercises in here are pretty good, and they go through each point for each chapter. Like there's, you know, some of them have 16 to 18 points. I mean, they're going to have quite a bit of questions in here, and this book is pretty big. It's definitely bigger than the workbook that you get with Genki. So I think it's a pretty good amount of exercises for you to do for the amount of money you spend on it. So there is that. So this one is, of course, geared towards English speakers because they have English translations for the they have English translations for the questions. It is in here. But because the question is asked in Japanese as well, pretty much anyone can buy this book, even if they don't speak English. Because I don't think the English actually is that helpful, and I usually try to ignore it. But there is some English in the workbook, as there is, of course, in the textbook. There isn't very much English in the textbook except for the grammar points. Everything else, though, is all Japanese. So that may be a little bit of an issue for anyone that doesn't speak English or read English. The points are explained in English, so I don't know if that will be kind of like an issue there. This one has probably, yeah, it has a lot more English in it, I bet. And then I guess there is cultural notes in the other book as well. So there is a lot of English cultural notes that that you have to know English for. But let's see. Oh yeah, and they do translate the grammar point example sentences, whereas in Tobira they don't. But yeah, a second longer. I mean, both of these books pretty much have really good properties. It's just, I don't know. It's that, like I was saying, the intermediate book really reminds me a lot of Genki. So if you've already done Genki, or a book similar to Genki, then I would probably start with the intermediate book first versus the Tobira. Trying to remember my first impressions of this book, of these books. I'm pretty sure, like, I've done Genki. I'm pretty sure I was able to follow both of these books really fast and really well right after Genki. So I don't know. And I was really nervous to try this one because I swear I thought it was going to be impossible to understand. Because when I first purchased this book, it was really intimidating. This book was really intimidating. I was like, there's no English. Where's the English? Like, I thought I'd have to have English to learn Japanese, but I mean, after you get to a certain point, you know, there's gonna be no English in textbooks. And this one actually, like I said, was easy enough for me to understand after doing Genki. So, I mean, even if you want to skip the intermediate book, I wish I did a comparison. I haven't completed all of my notes yet, and I didn't organize them by what book the information came from. But there are points in here in the intermediate book that are not taught in Tobira, and vice versa. So that's kind of one reason why I wanted to get 2 different textbooks, is because I was trying to see if you would learn some different points in one book versus the other. I think you do, though. Money's worth wise, like, this one teaches you the most, and it's not too hard to understand. They explain it with just, a few sentences, but they explain everything really well. All the grammar points are explained really well in the Tobira versus the intermediate. The intermediate's okay. Most of the time they'll just throw out, like I said, like I was showing you earlier, they just throw out the grammar point, the actual structure, and then they show a rough translation, and then just throw in some example sentences, but they don't really talk about the grammar point at all. So, I mean, this one definitely does a really good job detailing the grammar points. Even if it's only, 3, 4, 5 sentences worth, they explain really well. So that's what I was looking for in a textbook. But I really like both of them. And it's like right now I'm going back through and doing some of the work, and I'm making my flashcards. So that's what I'm doing right now with these 2 textbooks. I don't know if you guys have seen my other videos, my monthly videos, but what I did with these 2 textbooks is I combined them into one binder, which I have laying over here, and if you want to see it a little closer, it is in my monthly study videos. You can kind of see, like, from January upwards, it kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger, because originally I expected these books to repeat each other a lot. Like, they would cover one grammar point and then the other book would cover it as well, but maybe they'll explain it in a different way. That's what I was kind of expecting, but there wasn't much overlap in these 2 books, which I was kind of surprised, so that's actually. What I was expecting. I did have the Power Up, the grammar book for Tobira. I do not have one for the intermediate. There's also a kanji book you can get for Tobira. I don't study kanji that way. If you've seen any of my monthly videos studying, I study through the kanken level, kind of like the graded level system. I am currently on the 4th grade. I've completed it, but I'm still restudying and reviewing those. And I study the 7th level, and the kanken is the 4th grade level in elementary school Japanese kanji. So that is how I study kanji. But let me look up really quick. Pause this. Pull up the intermediate book. There's a revised edition of the intermediate Japanese from 2008. I don't know. Yeah, that's the most recent one. Revised edition for the intermediate 2008. That's crazy. So I wonder how old this one is. Either way, let me see. Okay. Oh, this one's from 1994. 1994. That's old. And the revised one is from 2008. So that's crazy. And the paperback copy is less than $10. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. How much is the other one real quick? Ooh, wow. The revised edition is about $50. That's crazy. But there's CDs. There's 2 CDs. I did not... Okay, there was no audio with this, but there was audio for Tobira. You had to find that website that a lot of people gave me the address for it, because I couldn't find it on my own, because I guess I'm not that smart figuring that out. But there's a CD, or there's audio online, and you can download it. And they give you a lot of work online too. Some problems, some little tests you can do, and a whole bunch of stuff online. So this is really cool, because they also have videos online that go over, like, dialogue. I don't think they're in the book. I think they just made up the dialogue. And you can use, like, your headphones and act like you're talking to the people on the dialogue or something. Is really weird. But let's look at this real quick. Okay, so Tobira, right now, cheapest you can buy it is $32. Plus shipping and handling, of course. And the Power Up is about $34. The kanji book's about $36. That seems about right. So let's show you this real quick. So here is the Tobira. Well, you know, pretty good rating. You got 4.7 out of 5. And let's look at the lower ones real quick. Hopefully my video doesn't cut out. And it gives you a little bit. Copy I received, a little damage. Good book, slow delivery. Not the best. It's a bridge gap between intermediate to advanced, and I feel fails to do that. While the author rightfully assumes the reader has studied Japanese before, this book is hardly a challenge. I would say it was right at the end of the beginner level bridge, the gap to intermediate. Possibly good for class discussion, studying alone. The chapters are a drag. Never got me engaged. So that's what they had to say about that, or the bad stuff anyway. And this one got a 3.5 out of 5. Let's check this real quick. They got a few 1 stars. There was no CDs and the price was the same. So I don't know if that was supposed to come with a CD. I don't think mine did. I think I bought mine pretty cheap. Where so far? I learned from 3 books now, Genki, Yokoso, and Integrated Intermediate. And this book by far is the worst to study from. There are no exercises in the book, which there are exercises in the book, just not very many. The grammar has more variations, has the shortest explanations and least amount of examples, where the shortest, simplest constructions get in-depth explanations and several examples. The vocabulary is not grouped together in themes. That was also something I noticed with that, and the fact seems to be more review than new material. The workbook has some of the most ridiculous exercises. I would spend hours trying to figure out what they wanted, and when I would ask a native Japanese speaker for help, even they were stumped by the questions. And if there is a way to know how to read the kanji in each kanji to learn section without looking them up by radicals or simply already knowing them, I'd love to know. Some good points. Vocabulary is listed with annotation marks, so you know exactly how to pronounce a word. Each chapter talks about specific radicals and what they mean. Each chapter has a few good culture notes. I had my complaints with Yokoso, but it was certainly a better series to learn from. Let's look at number 2 stars real quick. Not a lot of supporting material, not the best for self-study. Some dry grammar points thrown at you in a rapid-fire succession with a few examples. This comes from the same publisher as the Genki books. I guess that kind of makes sense why I felt like it was kind of like Genki. Less than impressed after the Genki series. Talks good things about Genki. The workbook does not cover all the grammar points, and on top of everything, there is no answer key. I am a huge advocate for answer keys. I'm using this in my University Japanese Level 3 class, which is the 5th semester, and I wish I had chosen a different text. So, Mary or Takeshi, I find that is probably from the other intermediate book, the one that I didn't really like. I think that's what they were talking about. Look elsewhere for a advanced book. I don't believe the intermediate book is supposed to be an advanced book. It's probably just a bridge that Genki made, or somebody made, that gap between Genki's level and up to a higher level book. Suburb if you're studying abroad. Everyone else is SOL. The title is a great described with the book. If you do all the exercises, practice grammar points, and do all the work in the book, you'll be very prepared, well prepared to go to Japan as a foreign exchange student. Biggest problem, it will have you learning many very specific situations. What to do in your homestay, how to act at school or get a part-time job, manage dispute with your homestay family, how to ask for a letter of recommendation, stuff like that. Additionally, this book has a ton of unnecessary vocabulary and grammar points. Be prepared to learn obscure gems like one who goes adrift at sea, to go far away to compete in sports, and many more. That is very true. The glossary is incomplete and poorly arranged, and there are a few redeeming qualities. However, the chapters are laid out in a systematic, organized fashion, so it's fairly easy to navigate the chapters, reference old grammar points. The audio CD contains all the conversations along with listening practice and reading out loud. which is helpful for developing listening skills. Aside from that, it's not a great book. So, hopefully video stays alive that long. So that is kind of a look into pros and cons, I guess, for that book. Now, be mindful that those reviews are for the 1994 book, so it's probably gotten... I want to check real quick. If I go to the bottom, good. I really appreciate the lack of hiragana. That's one reason why, though, I can understand that in a way, but I want them to supply it to me, the hiragana, but I don't want it to be right on top of the new words, like in Tobira. In Tobira, they don't give you hiragana until at the very end with your new word list. That's when you see the hiragana, and I like that. That's pretty cool. But I don't think they do that. No, it looks like it's about the same. Yeah, they do that the same with this one as well. So that's a really cool point about those sort of upper level textbooks, is that they don't have hiragana right available right away. You have to actually look at the end of the rating to find out how to pronounce a word. I mean, that is pretty much it. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. I should have probably taken notes about points that I liked and didn't like about each book as I was studying them. But anyway, I didn't. So I really think they're both worthwhile, and if you can find them used, then I would go for that. So the only downfall is the exercises that they provide you and no answer keys. Answer keys are really important when you're studying by yourself. So, hope, and in the intermediate book, it sounds like there's no answer key in the exercise book, so it's pretty bad. I don't know if the teacher guide book has an answer key in it. Maybe learn something about these books, and I will see you guys in the next video.